'Cause I looked at him on LinkedIn after his suggestion yesterday, and I got some interesting points. So if I am allowed, I'll be introducing him with this quote from a friend of his, Chase Diamond, that Lexington is one of the brightest people I know. He consistently brings out of the box ideas to the table. He's extremely timely, communicative, and always follows through his word. He's a very talented marketer, leader, and mentor. I would highly recommend him to any company, group, or organization that is looking for an executive consultant, board member, or mentor. And I think rather than just going through all his curriculum, which you can look up in LinkedIn, so amazing and very impacted by it. I think that this reflects the quality of people that we're bringing in. It's always someone who you recommend and you suggest because of the quality of passion in what they are doing. And well, just welcome to our talk today. And we also have Mr. Romans. Andrew Romans is the founder of CBC Venture Capital, and he is a top quarterly performer of VC. He's an entrepreneur, he is an investment banker, and he's the founder also of Founders Club and co-founder of Georgian and Angels. As well, if you came up on LinkedIn, you'll find a lot of interesting background on his curriculum. But he's written some entrepreneurial Bible to venture capital, and it has also been translated to Chinese, Japanese, Italian, and Russian, which means that you can read his works after you finish this talk if you like it. And you can look it up in different languages for all of you who are from other parts of the world. So without further ado, let's welcome them to give their talk on innovative funding methods for sustainable movement. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for such a warm and flattering introduction, Fernanda. Appreciate it. So I'm here with my colleague, the general partner and CEO of 7BC, Andrew Romans. I am a venture partner with Andrew at 7BC, and today we're going to be talking about some innovative ways of funding, in particular using venture capital to help support undeveloped countries and accelerate developed countries. And so we're going to, because we have a longer session today, we decided that we would do somewhat of a fireside chat Q&A format. So Andrew and I will both be talking throughout this, and I will be asking him questions related. And we think this format will be more engaging for everyone. So first of all, I'd like to welcome Andrew and let Andrew say hi really quick, and then we'll dive into our program.
Yeah, hey, Lexington, great to see you virtually here. And what an honor to be meeting all of you guys at UNESCO. So this is really, really cool. I think after Lex and I have our talk too, we're going to open it up for a couple minutes to questions. So maybe start thinking of questions you want to ask us as Lex and I talk.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. So we'll dive right into it. So I'm going to start with the first question here, Andrew. You believe that venture capital can accelerate the mission of UNESCO in both developing and developed countries. Can you please explain your reasoning behind this?
You know, it may sound like it's comedy, but I truly believe that venture capital can solve most of the world's problems. I think for developing economies as well as highly developed economies, venture capital backed entrepreneurship has hardly even started. So Silicon Valley might look like a big deal, but I honestly think it hasn't even started. And there's very clear and obvious ways that we can implement this in every country in the world.
So can you provide any case studies or examples of countries that have done this and maybe how they did?
Absolutely. And I think that in some cases you have even take it as a company by company basis, like Jeff Bezos is the founder of Amazon and one of the richest people in the world. it's in his nature to experiment with different things. So he started off selling books and music records like CDs on the internet, and then he diversified into streaming video, competing with Netflix and Amazon web server farms and hosting in the cloud. So he starts with one thing and diversifies into many things. If you look at a country by country basis of Nigeria or even Saudi Arabia being very dependent on oil and then diversifying like Jeff Bezos and Amazon into different things, venture capital is a way to almost inject the blood of a Steve Jobs from Apple or a Bezos from Amazon into the bloodstream of a 200-year-old Japanese firm who doesn't have the kind of Bill Gates founder nature to diversify into new things. I think an important thing to understand is that we are really at a second industrial revolution where software and robots can begin to do the work of workflows that humans do today. So if you think of farming, in a long time ago, people would farm literally with their hands. So there was no rake, no shovel, no tractor, no airplane to automate farming. And so we had automation of jobs that humans were doing, but now those humans are doing other things like building Microsoft and Amazon and investment banks. So I think that it's important for every large corporation to embrace technology and free the humans to do more advanced work than the boring kind of farming work that they're doing today. And venture capital and government policies can be implemented to have certainty of achieving the transformation of developed and underdeveloped economies much, much faster to the benefit of all humanity and the environment.
So in this transition of this second revolution that you've mentioned, this technology shift to automation, with these workers, in particular in these less developed countries, and even in the developed countries, where automation is surely taking over their jobs, there's going to be a lot of job displacement. So how can the world, how can these governments safely transition those displaced workers into a tech environment so that they can move up the social ladder?
Quite simply, and let me first give an example of something being automated. I remember I was a student in Berlin right after the Berlin Wall came down, and you still had the former socialist Soviet Union-driven East German economy. And if you went to the opera, which I did, you give your coat to one old lady, and she gives you a ticket. She gives it to another old lady. There was literally like 6 old ladies involved in putting my coat into the coat rack at the opera. And this was a kind of happy utopia that everyone has a job in the good old East German Democratic Republic. So it was a Soviet, everyone has a job. But to be honest, how many old ladies does it take to screw in a light bulb? It's literally a joke that you shouldn't have 8 people involved in having the total expense of hanging the coat being so big. I think that there's ways in when you go to get a visa to go to China when it's not Corona, I have to go for almost an entire day to the consulate in San Francisco and go through all kinds of pain just to get a visa in my passport. Whereas when I go to Istanbul, Turkey, I'd literally go to a website and in 3 minutes, I upload a scan of my passport and there's computers and software that do a perfect job. So Turkey gives you like a visa in 5 minutes with a debit card, Visa card, $18. It's beautiful. Whereas going to Russia, the United States, these other countries, it's a disaster. So automation is clearly, Turkey is doing it right. and China is doing it the old painful way, and Russia is not easier. But if you look at getting a bank mortgage, if you want to borrow money to go to a university, it can take 9 months to borrow money to buy your house. And so as venture capitalists, we invested in Lenda, and these guys write software every day, and they collapse the time from 6 or 9 months down to 2 days to get a mortgage. And they're doing it much more accurately. They're using so much more data. So they're taking financial services and beginning to automate it, and it does create jobs. So let me explain how we create jobs while automating human workflows and improving things. So one, we're going from farming by hand to farming with technology like a tractor and machines. We're going from the bad way of getting your visa or a credit card or a car loan to from 60 days to 6 days or 2 days. But for example, the government, you asked for specific examples, Lexington. So yes. In the European Union has the EIF, European Investment Fund. The EIF will put up 30 to 50% of the cash for a venture capital fund. And then the founders like Lexington and me, we need to raise matching money to match the government money. You also have BPI France in Paris, and that's a government program with taxpayer money from the Caisse de dépôt, and they will put up 50% of the cash for a venture capital fund. And then the VCs have to raise the matching money. Same thing in the UK. You have the BBB, the British Business Bank. When Brexit happened, the EIF pulled out of putting money into British VC funds, and the British government tripled the budget. And now the budget for government money for VC funds is bigger in the UK than all of the European Union combined. Now, this is what happens on jobs. Let's say that Lexington and I go to Nigeria, and I hope to do this one day. We go to Nigeria, and let's say the government of Nigeria puts in place a program exactly the same as the European Union, France, or the UK. And we say we want to raise $500 million to create high-tech jobs in Nigeria and transform the Nigerian economy. If the government puts in 50% of the fund, that's $250 million, and the Nigerian government has $250 million sitting in a bank account doing nothing. So they could put the $250 million in, and then Lexington and I will go to large companies in Nigeria that want to automate and want to bring technology into their business so they're not victims of this second industrial revolution, but they're winners of the speed at which things are changing with software and automation. Now, when we have a $500 million venture capital fund, this is what we're going to do. We're going to fund startups that we will bring joint ventures from the United States, from the UK, from European Union, Switzerland, to Nigeria that we know will work. For example, imagine that Uber raised money in Silicon Valley, and then a month later, Lexington and I create Uber Nigeria. We license all the technology from Uber USA to Uber Nigeria, only for use inside that jurisdiction, that country. And then we use some of our money and we invest $5 million into Uber Nigeria. We hire over Zoom, we hire a CEO for Uber Nigeria, we hire a head of sales, a head of product, and we begin hiring teams of engineers. And all of a sudden we have 10,000 new jobs in Nigeria with a business that's growing very, very quickly, and it's diversifying the economy. Now, Lexington, you asked me when we were talking, but do we have engineers and qualified people to work for Uber Nigeria? What if they were, I don't know, agricultural or factory workers? We have a company, okay, called Lambda School, where for free, we train people on becoming engineers, and they pay nothing, but they pay 17.5% of their first year and second year salaries for 2 years, up to a max of 30,000. So if you do not have the skills to work for a venture capital backed technology company, we can give you free education, but it's not totally free. You agree to pay a small 17% of your first 2 years' salary. And if you become the next Mark Zuckerberg and make billions, you never pay more than 30,000. So this is a way that we can literally create opportunity. We can create good jobs, really good jobs, and we can train you on how to work there, and we can coach you on all of our experience of building companies. I personally founded startups that are technology startups that raised more than $300 million of venture capital funding and IPO'd and were sold to the larger big balance sheet public buyers. So I have experience personally of building teams. We've got a network of guys like Lexington, so we can bring our experience and we can work with governments and large corporations to not create, like Donald Trump talks about saving the coal industry. He says, I want you to work underground, extracting coal and polluting the Mother Earth. And he wants your children to work in coal and their children to work in coal. Now, I don't want to get political, but I want your children to have healthy, safe, exciting jobs, travel the world, and not pollute the environment, and transform economies and make a lot of money, and make for stable, peaceful, global interaction. So we can create those jobs, and we can work with government policies, tax policies that create incentives for large companies to match government money, and then set up these venture capital funds that create jobs. One other point is this really makes money for the government, because if the government, or let me stop there, and Lex, you drive the conversation.
So that's a good point. I wanted to, I think you were segueing into the same thing. I just wanted to ensure that there'll probably be some questions that the audience is circulating right now in their minds. So more specifically, Andrew, what's your advice for what governments do? And can you show any unit economics or some specific details for a return on their investment, like this example you gave with Nigeria, or provide a new example on investing into a VC fund that can help with this new job creation and support and grow their economy, and as well as from a tax and traditional investment perspective?
Okay, so normally when someone invests into 7BC venture capital, they're doing that with a financial incentive. They want to make money. So if somebody puts $1 million into 7BC venture capital fund, they can expect that we will pay them back $5 to $10 million. So if they put in $100 million, they get back $500 million to $1 billion. For government, they want to create jobs, and they want to diversify the economy, and they want to transition from an old, dirty economy to a clean, high-tech economy. So if the government puts in 50% of the cash, so let's say $100 million of a $200 million fund, they probably would receive $500 million or more back. So that's the financial return. However, the government has a monopoly on tax. So no one is allowed to tax in Nigeria but the government of Nigeria. So if they put in 50% of the money, and then the rest is matching money, and we invest that into startups, and we fund jobs for 2 years for each startup to hopefully become profitable or raise more money, all of the payroll tax all of the ordinary income tax from those jobs is going back to the Nigerian government. So they actually get the money back as a full return on investment, ROI, within 24 months. And if they were even less of the fund, so the Nigerian government could say, we're going to be 25% of the fund. So we're putting $50 million, but the VCs have to raise 150. So they're 25%. So now they're 25% of the cash capital base of the fund, but they get 100% when those workers of these new jobs pay their taxes. And if we have Uber Nigeria and everyone is paying money and we have revenue, so you've got sales of the products and services, the government is getting tax on the growth of the sales and services. The way venture capital works is that we don't put all the money into one company. These early stage companies, some of them will run out of money and go bankrupt. The government still gets the tax money back on the company that fails because we create jobs, they work hard, but they fail. But if 1/3 fail, the government gets their money back on the tax. If 1/3 they get their money back one time, then the government got all their money back, plus they got the tax. But the other 1/3 do so well, they become blockbuster hits like Uber, and they're worth $70 billion. That pays the financial investor back for the 1/3 loss or the 1/3 flat. So the key secret to venture capital is diversification. You raise $500 million for Nigeria, we would invest in probably 70 to 100 different companies. So we spread our risk. It's kind of like if you were to invest in the stock market, you invest in the S&P 500. So you're spread across 500 different publicly traded stocks. Even if a few go down, other ones go up. So that's diversification and portfolio construction. So we take an approach where it's high risk, high reward, that it could be worth a lot and it could be worth nothing. But we diversify, so some of them are worth a lot and some go down, but the ones that go up much more. And in our model of taking companies to a developing economy, we only take joint ventures. So we would look at companies that already raised lots of venture capital funding at home and the product works. So we would be fast in bringing something like Uber to Nigeria or Southeast Asia or China or Vietnam or anywhere.
Okay, thank you. So Andrew, that brings the question to one mind. I mean, regarding our topic, a big part of this is social and environmental impact and meeting the 2030 UN goals and mandates. Just a little additional insight on maybe a country that is interested in this model because it makes more sense fiscally, as well as for the social impact for their citizens. But how could this be applied for a country that wants to have some focus towards meeting these goals, these sustainability goals that are becoming more and more mandated from governments around the globe? We see that as a trend that's not going away. How could that?
Yeah, I live in California where we have a problem of too much sun, not enough rain. And it blows my mind that we're lighting forest fires because of the transmission power cables are above ground and the wind creates for fire. It blows my mind that they're not underground in pipes and that we don't have more solar power. The unit economics of Elon Musk's Solar City, which he merged with Tesla, and Sunrun, I was involved with both of those companies, and it blows my mind that we don't have more solar power, not to mention removing large, dangerous distribution, and in developing economies, even more so. I think that there's opportunities to create venture capital funds that are very highly focused on specific technologies such as renewables and migrating us away from classic fossil fuel technologies. But they should be done where we know that the unit economics will work in that country, in that application. The merger between Tesla and Solar City was quite interesting, not least of which that Elon Musk was the largest shareholder of both. So it looked a bit kind of full of interesting conflict. But the truth is, it makes perfect sense to have solar power on your roof and going right into the big, power supply underneath the car in the Tesla, and even have the car move somewhere else and unload power to someone else who wants to buy it. So you're creating this mobile battery packs. It's like, imagine you had solar to the remote battery, and then you move and share your battery with somebody else. So it's quite ingenious. But I think in general, if you look at the largest companies on the US stock exchange by market capitalization, by the total value of all of that company, going back 20 years ago, you would see Exxon and Mobil. So of the top five, Exxon was one and Mobil was another. Then they merged. So it became Exxon Mobil. That would have been 40% of the top five largest companies on the stock exchange. You saw Sun Oil Bank. So you had the oil industry and the banking industry were the largest five companies. You fast forward another 10 years and you see Microsoft. Microsoft is among the largest five. Do you know what the largest five are today? Lexington, what do you think the largest five companies are on the US stock exchange by market capitalization?
They're all tech companies, would be my guess.
That's right. So you've got Alphabet, Google, you've got Microsoft. What do we have? We got Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, those five. All five were founded by, were CEO run by the founders. Largely, Eric Schmidt came from not far from you, from Novell, over to Silicon Valley from Utah. You've got, they're all West Coast. So they're all California and Washington State. So they're isolated from their parents to run their experiments and not follow their parents' advice of getting a job as an accountant or a lawyer. And they, and they're all in these beautiful locations. So what that means is that on a global basis, from the perspective of UNESCO or any government leader, the largest companies do not need to be banks. They don't need to be oil companies. The largest banks in the future are the smart mobile network operators. So TMI in Indonesia has 170 million mobile phone subscribers. That should be the number one bank in Indonesia. And we're working with them to do that. So we want to work with mobile network operators, with banks on embracing technological change, invest money into lots of startups, and have them get sold to the large companies who integrate that technology. And the long-term future of value is a clean environmental economy. So Microsoft does not have smokestacks that are just releasing pollution into the air. It's a relatively clean company and it's growing very, very quickly. And, I remember I took a course on environmental studies at the University of Vermont 30 years ago. And I remember learning about all the environmental problems of our oceans, our rivers, our lakes, our soil, our air being polluted. And it makes you want to cry. But then they show you it's only a question of money. There's no environmental problem that cannot be fixed with money. You can put like a plastic bag around garbage, but it's expensive. So I think the mission of humanity is to make money with value creation driven by venture capital, getting the large companies to buy our small companies to help them transition in a way that is natural for Jeff Bezos, but not natural for Sumitomo in Japan as a 200-year-old Japanese company where the average board member is 80 years old, as opposed to dynamic, crazy Jeff Bezos. That future will give us the money to address our environmental problems one at a time and give us the cash we need to pay for that.
Excellent points. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So I think this is a nice segue into, let's talk a little bit about the future. And for these UNESCO delegates here today, there's a lot of youth delegates here today from around the globe representing a number of these government agencies and organizations and NGOs, and they're the future. So for them, in your opinion, what's the once in a generation technology shift that these UNESCO delegates should be aware of, and how can large companies and governments prepare for it?
Okay, so we are going through a once in a generation shift in the economy driven by technology. So until now, you had a lot of data is in a silo and it is not being accessed. Right now, we're accessing data and we're cleaning the data and we're running it through algorithms driven by machine learning. And these things are like Lego bricks that you can build them together and very rapidly create new applications that do things faster and better. So it's kind of like going from farming by hand to farming with a machine and a tractor. And the large companies that do not embrace this will go bankrupt or get acquired by other large companies that are faster in adopting this technology. So if you take any country and say, what are the top 40 large companies that drive the GDP of that economy? Those top 40 companies are at risk of going bankrupt or getting acquired from a foreign company, depending on the regulations. And if those companies are faster in adopting this technology, they will not only survive, but they will be the ones that buy other ones. And the way for the large companies to efficiently manage this migration is to have a strong M&A, mergers and acquisitions department that buys companies and also have a corporate venture capital arm. One of the books I've written is called Masters of Corporate Venture Capital, and it goes through 20 case studies of Microsoft Ventures, Intel Capital, Qualcomm Ventures on how to do that. So my advice is I think that there's a lot of youth and they're the future of all these countries. And if you're on a UNESCO call right now, you probably have a good chance of influencing your government to have smart policies in influencing state-owned enterprises as well as non-state-owned large companies, family office-run conglomerates to invest some money in venture capital, create matching government programs like the British Business Bank, like BPI France, like the European Investment Fund, and like the old Small Business Administration and SBA in the United States, and have matching money from government where they get the money back from tax and they get the money back, large corporations putting money in and driving lots of startups in that country, as well as technical training programs that work on shared income agreements so that the student pays nothing until they get that new high-tech job. Then they pay 2 years of a small percentage back to that other startup that is the school training thing. And we can do that. We would be very happy to take meetings or Zoom calls and share what we think are the right policies for government and the right policies for large corporations. For example, if you have a mobile phone company, they used to own the yellow pages of directory assistance. And then Google came along and destroyed that business for them. They fell asleep at the wheel, the telecom companies. They used to let Steve Case from AOL, America Online, create modem banks, access their infrastructure, and put their customers on the internet and connect them over modems. Who was running the telco to allow Steve Case to do that and take away all their business? A mobile network operator today makes money on minutes, voice minutes, SMS text, data, and roaming. That's ridiculous. They should offer all that for free to anyone who opens a bank account with Zain or any MNO. So every mobile network operator should become a bank and a million other things. They should stop being asleep at the wheel as they were up until today. And the average revenue per user could be amazing. And the same thing for banks. So we would love to talk to large corporations about using venture capital like a weapon and a tool to achieve these goals. and transform their economy, creating tons of high-tech jobs and cleaning up the environment quite sensibly. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and we think that there are other people who have done this right, other countries that have good policies, that the punchline of all this, Lexington, is that it makes money. If the government puts $100 million, if they put $50 million into a $200 million fund, they'll get the $50 million back on payroll tax and tax on the products and services of the winners of the portfolio. Even if one company out of 60 is successful, that probably pays the full $50 million back, but it's not 50 million. It's more like 250 to 500 million that they make back after 4 or 5 years, while guaranteeing the creation of these jobs, which go on. If we fund $500 million of jobs that are all high tech in Nigeria, we will have successfully created a new population of individual people that will go on to found other companies. I guarantee if some exciting entrepreneur is working with Lexington Blood every week on the phone with Lex, that they will come up with a new idea and solve unique problems to Nigeria. And it won't be a copycat of Uber. It'll be a uniquely born company because Nigeria has unique problems. And that entrepreneur who's from there will know how to solve the problem and knows how to raise money and knows how to hire engineers and create and release products and even knows how to promote it with sales and marketing genius. So the biggest thing is the population of people we will create, and we will not own what they do in the future. We'll just own a minority share of their first company. Maybe if we're really polite, they'll let me and Lexington fund them on their next company too. And the same investors that invested in the first $500 million fund, when we pay them back $5 billion, maybe they'll be polite enough to put maybe $1 billion into the next fund. And this becomes an evergreen, sustainable system. Listen, my friends at UNESCO, we are nowhere near a steady state of how much venture capital can go into your economies. It hasn't even started. I know this, property prices in Silicon Valley are crazy expensive, and I'll bet you can get beachfront property in Vietnam for a lot less. So some engineer making $100,000 a year in Silicon Valley, living below the poverty line, making $50,000 a year, he'll have a house in Ho Chi Minh City and a beach villa and living large and developing the next great startup right from Vietnam. We're nowhere near the steady state.
So through this venture capital government supported program that invests in its own country, in businesses for job creation and to automate to bring their country into the future, it would also generate the potential, the ideas in a lot of these countries where they're just worried about accomplishing their 9-to-5, more labor-intensive, low-paying job and surviving. This would not only free them up to educate them to work in technology and make a higher income to support their family, but it would also open the doors to the potential that a lot of people around the world have not had access to, so they can free their creative mind to solving these problems that they know far better than you or I would know, Andrew, in this country, like you mentioned. And they would know that there's a venture capital government-supported fund in that country where they could submit their ideas to get funding to create their own business.
That's right. That's right. I mean,
it creates opportunities that can trickle down into future generations.
I think that if I had a $100 million fund in Vietnam, I would start by taking the best companies from the United States, Canada, UK, Nordic, Scandinavia, Europe, and Israel, and I would create joint ventures in Vietnam, recruit teams locally, and execute on copycats. That's what I would start with. And then over time, in working with the local Vietnamese team that we have funded, ask them what are your unique problems? And can we solve those problems? And we would go to some beautiful location for a weekend and talk about what are the top problems here. And does anyone want to start a company? And we'll fund that. But I would start off of not taking, I don't want to lose money. I want to make sure that in the beginning, I take $100 million and turn it into $500 million very quickly. So I would start off by taking the next, food delivery, whatever, taxi for old people with Alzheimer's. We will take the things that we know are working, that would work there. We'll create those joint ventures and fund them. And then we'll quickly get to IPOs and M&A and get all of our money back with a return, and then work with these people of saying, what are the unique problems that you can solve? And like in a place like Indonesia, it's an archipelago country. The traffic is so bad. The infrastructure of roads is really bad that everyone's doing everything on their mobile phone. The first time I saw 84% of people were transacting on mobile, I thought, oh, they're wizards. They figured out how to put the buy button on the phone. No, if you don't book your vacation on the back of a moped, you ain't going on vacation because you never get to where you're going in Indonesia. So there's unique problems that will work there that did not work in California. Americans don't need Bitcoin. In Argentina, they could have used some Bitcoin over the last 30 years, for their transactions. So there's different problems in different areas. But I like the idea that the first 15 companies we bring over are taking no risk. We know it'll work. They've already raised a ton of money. The technology is already there. We just localize the technology and start hiring our own engineers and sales teams in those countries. And we'll immediately be creating jobs. We'll immediately be getting tax revenue for the state. And we can advise the state on how to say, we're willing to be 50% of your first fund, but we want to be not more than 15%. Because if you're 15% of the cash in the fund, but you got this monopoly on tax, that's a really great position. That's a great position to be in. And we can also advise the large corporations on what are their unique problems. Are you Time Magazine with 17 print publications, and it's a certainty that you're going to go bankrupt if you don't pivot and change your business? Or are you some Southeast Asian rubber factory that doesn't know what to do with their extra $1 billion of EBITDA? That's a different problem to have. What do I do with all this cash? I'm sure that there's some families that are just running Africa that have so much money they don't know what to do with it, with that money, where we could do something very patriotic that makes a lot of money, that improves the quality of life. For every job that we automate, I think we're creating at least 3 exciting, higher value jobs. I don't think it's the destiny of humanity to work underground extracting coal or to farm by hand and your back is killing you every day. I think it's more exciting for us to use our brains and get new skills and even have more fun at work.
So what you're saying is, in your opinion, with this future shift, this technological shift in automation, and a lot of people's fear is what's going to happen with the jobs and displacement. Right. In your opinion, it's going to create more opportunity, not less.
That's right. And I think that there's exciting arbitrage of quality of life in this country or that country, or someone might have moved to the United States and made a lot of money, but decided they wanted to retire back at home in India. I think it's very exciting that the world is relatively free and open. Ironically, in COVID, my visa to Saudi Arabia and China are not doing me much good. But in normal times, we can travel a lot. We can speak over Zoom and Skype and WhatsApp. I think that if we automate the jobs of 5 old ladies checking my coat at the opera in East Berlin, we can find different exciting things for those old ladies to do. Perhaps they could teach someone how to speak German over Zoom and make money teaching someone. Everybody knows something. People should be able to teach someone else what they know, or we could teach that person, we could teach the old lady literally software engineering, and then she could become a virtual software engineer teacher over Zoom for the next generation of Germans. And she might find it much more interesting to be teaching somebody how to speak German or teaching someone software engineering than being one of 4 old ladies checking the same coat at the opera when she should be home with her family at that time anyway.
That's encouraging. So let's talk a little bit more about these governments who are already have policies that and want to reinvest, but maybe not sure how, or are not doing it in this more creative, more efficient venture capital model that you've discussed here today. Should their government policies focus on very early stage venture capital, Series A, or late stage growth, or all of these? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so what I've witnessed is over the last 20 years, government people seem to think that pre-seed, so companies that do not have any sales revenue yet, so they're super early stage, that creates jobs. And so the government should be trying to incubate this and get it going. For example, in Germany, the German culture is natively anti-risk. They don't like to take a chance and take a risk. If you ask a young person in Germany 30 years ago, would you rather work at a technology startup like joining Mark Zuckerberg when you were the number 2 employee? Or would you rather work for the post office, the government? Amazingly, the German wants to work at the post office. Like that's where they see themselves in 20 years, working for the post office. Where the Americans are more, I want to be the next Bill Gates. And they end up being the next Mark Zuckerberg, you know? So the Germans also knew that nobody wanted to invest money in someone's crazy idea that has no revenue. So the government made High-Tech Gründerfonds, which was a 100% German money from the taxpayer, writing 500,000 euro checks for 15% ownership of the company. So there was literally no angel investors, private individuals funding startups. So the government stepped in and did that. But the government never stepped in to create large funds that could write a $60 million check into one company for a scale up. And so the government made a mistake. They think early stage creates jobs and late stage is Bernie Madoff, Occupy Wall Street guys taking advantage of the system. They're actually wrong. The government needs to back small funds that are doing lots of early investments, so high risk, but super high diversification. So you don't lose money when you achieve that level of diversification. And then big funds to write fewer checks for real scale ups. 82% of venture capital backed startups in Europe that get acquired via M&A, and not that many companies IPO, especially in Europe. You kind of have SAP and nothing else in Germany. So 82% of the European venture-backed startups that are good enough to get acquired via M&A get acquired by American domiciled buyers. I love saying this in Paris. If that statistic remains static for the next 30 years, all of you French people here working in the IT industry and the tech industry will have American masters. How do you feel about that? Well, of course, they don't like that. They want to be Napoleon. They want to be a master of an American. But the government doesn't back the French company to get onto the stock exchange. They back the company to get acquired by Amazon, Jeff Bezos, right? And Microsoft and Google and Alphabet, you know. So what France needs is more money at the late stage to fund a scale up, to go public, IPO, become the big balance sheet buyer that's buying all the companies and getting all the different experiments the way Amazon does. Amazon buys new companies every day. They play rough, actually. You know, be careful with that guy, Mr. Bezos. He's a rough man. But so we need it at every stage. And so, we need to logically put it into place at the right time. So you need money for seed, you need money for Series A, you need to have incubators, you need involvement of the large corporations, you need tax benefit for the high net worth individuals to put money directly in a startup or into a fund. So there's sensible tax policy, sensible government programs with matching, use case studies of what worked and what's not working, and understand the big picture, and even put economic incentives to the large corporations to partner internationally and to increase how many companies they buy. There's not enough of a culture of M&A acquisition in most large corporations outside of the United States.
So a part of what I'm hearing then is the way it's working currently, even in some of these countries around the world where they have some government funded system to support their businesses, their startup and venture ecosystem. As it stands today, America is buying up the winners. So there's a consolidation of happening here in America that's taking away from the job creation potential and reinvestment capital for society and their sustainability efforts in these countries.
Yeah, the United States is amazing in how bad the politicians are and yet how good the private citizens are. So we have just the worst government. Both sides are bad. There's just nothing good. The whole system's a mess. But our business people, boy, they're good. We literally are buying everything that's good. The Chinese are trying to buy a lot of things, but culturally, they're not getting into the good deals. So I think it's actually imperative for other countries to begin to be the buyer. They need to fund startups. They should be funding startups internationally and bringing these international startups to their country faster. So, like the government of Nigeria, the government of Vietnam, Indonesia, all these places should be in Silicon Valley funds where they've got a front row seat on the automation technology that's happening. And then they should quickly have another fund at home that creates the joint venture and brings that company there faster. Wouldn't you like to own Careem in the Middle East and Grab in Southeast Asia, 99 Taxi in Brazil, and Didi in China? Uber had to pay a lot of money to buy its own copycat clones. They should have had 49% of the joint venture on day one and shared the intellectual property with a local team funded by a local fund and crush it faster.
So this leads to and we're getting close to a close here. So in your opinion, these countries, an easy way forward is to create these venture capital funds in their company in conjunction with someone like 7BC, for example, or here in America, where the automation is ahead of everyone else. And they should flip the script. Instead of us buying all the winners, which is what's happening, they should be buying who's winning here and licensing that tech, so they are creating a division of that company in that country.
And then IPO the company.
Greater chance of success.
And they should IPO that company. And so you've got a sustainable company that is more than 50% owned by local money that doesn't leave its shores. They create a huge opportunity for the company in Silicon Valley because we're going to hire a lot of engineers in that country and license back to the other parent sister company for use ROW, rest of the world. So it's maybe easier to get into these details one-on-one, but the idea that every French entrepreneur and all of the software engineers and salespeople and marketing people are going to have American masters, that's really not the ideal fantasy of Emmanuel Macron, right? What's interesting is that the EIF, the European Investment Fund, where the government money, it's sustainable. So even though they're backing European startups, which do not perform as well as American startups, it's doing pretty well anyway. So when they started with a few billion euros, it is growing. So taxpayers aren't paying into the EIF. The EIF is growing and sustainable. And they even pay huge amounts of tax revenue into the state. But Emmanuel Macron is not accepting that. He's saying that what he pays into the EU for this sector of fueling venture capital to solve the world's problems is not enough. So he created BPI France, or he increased the budget of BPI France. And now he's talking about, I think BPI France just announced that they raised like a 3.6 billion euro fund with all the BNP Paribas. They went and got Total. They got all the big French corporations, and Macron forced them to put money into a BPI France fund that's investing into publicly traded French companies. So I think those guys have a good understanding of what's happening. And I think the BBB in the UK is doing really well. And all these other countries are, frankly, asleep. The United States government's doing nothing right now, but it doesn't matter because our entrepreneurs are doing it themselves and our companies are doing it themselves. Imagine how powerful the United States could be if we had even a drop of Chinese organized government form of doing business, but it's never going to happen. So other countries need to wake up. Large corporations need to wake up, especially when you have good state-owned enterprises sitting on cash. We can organize them in a way replicated to BPI France. I actually went my last 2 years of high school into a bilingual high school in Paris, and I know the CEO of BPI France. He went to my high school and he's been in our office, Lexington in San Francisco. We could easily get all these guys to help any country. I'm sure they'd be happy to, and I would be happy to make these introductions.
So in closing, what do you think, would you mind just in summary, a little highlight takeaway on how this model in general this venture capital model is better than anything else out there as far as innovative ways to fund a future that can elevate the social well-being of these underdeveloped countries, accelerate the developed countries, and also contribute to the long-term sustainability goals of these countries moving forward. And then how 7BC, how we're available to maybe consult with some of these countries to help them put this framework in place.
Yeah, chapter 1 of my second book, Masters of Corporate Venture Capital, is available for free. So we can provide a link for anyone to download that for free. And I interviewed over 200 large corporations that have corporate venture capital programs. And I asked them, why do you do this? And they all gave me a huge list of reasons. So the benefits they get from operating a corporate venture capital fund is a long list of good things. And the last reason I think of as the punchline to the cosmic joke, it makes money. So the government program that the EIF is running is making money. So it wasn't like they gave money with the CARES Act to pay unemployed bartenders during COVID-19 to sit at home watching Netflix. It's not just like wasted government money. It actually makes money. And it's a double bottom line because they make money on the tax and they make money on a return on investment if it's done right. Now, there's examples of how to not do it. And I think Russia, I love the guys, but they are the number one example of what not to do. They said, well, we have more money than Saudi with our oil. Why don't we have a Silicon Valley? And they built this Skolkovo science park an hour outside of Moscow, had these multi-billion-dollar funds, and all the money was stolen via corruption. So you got to be careful you don't have corruption and you don't have stealing of the money, and it all ends up in Swiss bank accounts with Russians buying property on the Cap Ferrat in the South and the French Riviera. It's really horrible to see that happen. So I think that there's ways to structure it where you get the right, it's all about people. If you have the right people involved and you have government money, you've got respectable large corporations putting money in, you've got the families, like the Wallenberg family alone accounts for 30% of the GDP of Sweden. One family, the Wallenbergs, for every dollar Swedish kroner made, 30% of it is going to one family. That's probably the same situation in various parts of the world. We want those families, those respectable families, to be part of the deal. Sometimes you have the effect of Singapore Corporation. There's no such thing as Singapore Corporation, but there is. Singtel, the government, a couple of companies, the guys who make the weapons, that's Singapore Corp. Once you figure out the corporation of a country, we get them involved, and we have lots of checks and balances, so there's no corruption. We have a very specific plan of how many companies we invest in, at what stage, oversight of the bookkeeping of these companies, making sure these bank accounts are not getting emptied and someone ends up buying property in the south of France. They can buy property in the south of France after we IPO the company or sell it via M&A the honest way.
Thank you, Andrew. So we're about to close here and lead into, I guess there's a Q&A. Guy and Fernanda will take it from here. But Andrew and I, we're so grateful and humbled to have this opportunity to speak to you all today around the globe at UNESCO. And here at 7BC Venture Capital, we welcome the opportunity to advise governments and large corporations around the globe on these topics. You're welcome to reach out to us freely. We're both accessible via LinkedIn through our names. I'll share a couple links here in chat, and any other links. Andrew can share the link for the free chapter of the book and how to contact us. And that's that. Andrew, I'll let you say something and close, and then Guy and Fernanda will roll on into Q&A. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lexington. I think it's wonderful. I'm excited to hear anyone's questions.
Okay. Wow. So I would like, first of all, to thank Andrew and Lexington for this, I would say, a quick learning of a totally new language. Yes, of course, I am an American citizen. I've been here for more than almost 30 years, 25, 30 years, but I was born in Cameroon as an activist, social justice activist. And basically, this program, have about 500 young people from 60 different countries online to learn about, these are the leaders of tomorrow, learning about the tools that will be available to help make the world a better place, to create peace. And I did mention something a few days ago when I was talking to Lexington about some initiative that I will definitely bring to you. Like you say, I'm just glad that you are available. And the one after listening to you and giving the contact I have personally with head of state and government in Africa, I think it's just like learning a total new language. Okay, what we are talking about today, I will tell you, if the same person that has my, I would say, educational level or the level of responsibility in Africa might not be able to get what you are saying just because we are talking about things that we are used to it here in the system. So I see here the needs of developing a mechanism by way trade collaboration, whatever, where you could bring this kind of, I would say, knowledge, understanding to some of the decision makers in the places where the need is the most. Okay, it's totally, you will be spending hours talking at people who are in decision making process who don't understand the language, like, is not going to be as productive as it is. So my first take away before I turn over to the delegate that may have some Q&A is the fact that it will be great for us to continue the dialogue. This is the first time we are talking. I'm very grateful to this, and put a system in place. I don't know, it may be something that, or maybe monthly or every 2 months, something to prepare people to really understand, because it's so dense and concise. Like, like you said, one successful company could not pay for all the expenses that And we had a minister of, this morning we have a minister of education in Argentina was participating, and we have the director of MESA in Washington State, who is, the system, with the school system, trying to make sure equity, bringing a minority. All this, we're talking about trying to help make things better. Talking about equity, but that, and what we are talking about is something that needs to, all these people need to come around and understand that equity, the investment and venture capitalists have a role to play in that. So I definitely want to hopefully be that bridge with fellow my colleagues in Africa and member of government in other countries to really, so that we take the time to break this down into language they could understand, because I think there's a value in it. Okay.
Okay, je peux le dire en français aussi.
Oui, en fait, il y a justement, il y a l'ambassadeur du Mali qui est en ligne, là, il écoute.
No, but I understand when you say it's a new language. We're not talking about it's French or English, but I can explain this in French. And it would be a great honor to set up a call once a month or every 2 months and maybe talk about one topic at a time.
That's exactly what I'm doing with that.
So it's not overwhelming, like
exactly.
Lexington and I
that's
speaking
exactly
for an
what
hour.
I like to work with you.
It might be too much. Might be too much to hear Lexington talking to me.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. So,
but I think one simple, one way to say one thing, so I'm not saying 500 things in 1 hour, is say, Andrew and Lexington have a company that has online software engineering training. And we want to set that company up in Cameroon or across Africa and give Africans that can make some time to learn online how to be an engineer. And then we get them a job working after they complete the program. And it's a free university. They don't pay any money to do it. And if they're good, they get a job at the end, and they pay 17.5% of their salary for 2 years. And if it's more than $30,000, that's it. And with the help of the government, we could set this up in Africa. And in a world of build a wall and COVID, everything, they don't need to leave their country. They can stay there and get a job. I'm sure Jack Dorsey at Square, we could train them all to work at Square. And Jack Dorsey is ready to do that today. He told us this. We know that. So we could train people in Africa to work globally.
In Latin America as well. We have a lot of people from Latin America everywhere.
Okay.
And for those who don't know what Square is, it's a fintech payment company that their technology is applicable and transferable across borders around the globe.
Okay, good. So definitely I'm going to have a follow-up with you, Lexington. I'll definitely pleased to really unroll this. So let Fernanda, you have a question or something?
We're going to the interview after this. So.
Yes, we're going to, yes, we have the interview after this. So what about the delegates? I would like the delegates. You have some few questions. You can even ask a question in French. As you can see, Andrew est parfaitement bilingue. Il parle français et anglais. So vous avez une question?
We have some delegates.
I have a question.
Okay.
So, and it's yeah, we are talking about automatically and all this perspective of technologies and new era or new generation. But what are these countries that are in development or in the I don't know if someone that speaks Spanish can translate me these tercermundistas.
Yes, Fernanda can help.
How do you say?
Fernanda can help. Go ahead.
Developing countries. We say developing countries. Developing countries.
Developing countries like Venezuela that has a crisis, or Colombia that also has a crisis and a problem with corruption. And how what strategies do you think that is good to apply to all these countries, like Mexico, that also have problems with corruption and all these stuffs? But I think that we all knew that Mexico and is the most of these three countries that I mentioned that is the most advanced in technology than Colombia and Venezuela. So my question is that what strategy do you think that these countries or these countries needs to use to start in this process of the new generation of technologies being the corruption and all this stuff appropriate.
Well, 7 BC stands for 7 borderless continents. So our vision is to be, free of being locked into one continent. For Mexico is a big market, and it's a rich country, and it's attractive to, and actually for some reason, there's a lot of really good entrepreneurs from Colombia, from Bogota, and they have unique problems down there. For example, if you work for 99 Taxi as the driver, the driver doesn't get the money fast enough to pay for petrol and doesn't even have a bank account. So it needs to be solved in some kind of cryptocurrency way, that he immediately can pay at the pump from his phone with the knowledge that the fare just deposited money. But I think that what I would do is say, if the government is serious and the government is ready to supply a certain percentage of capital to the fund, we would get that in paper legally that they agree to wire 15% or 50% of the capital, and then the government introduce us to large corporations and the wealthy, rich families there, and see if they want to provide the matching money. At that point, we take possession of the money into our bank account, and we're very careful of each startup that we fund. And we would begin by bringing companies from outside of the region, largely from Silicon Valley, but other places also, US, Canada, UK, the Nordic countries in Europe, and maybe Israel. And we would create those joint ventures, and we would recruit the team to work there, and we would wire money to that company and run the startup. And out of concerns for corruption, we would create something that I call 7 BC Factory. And 7 BC Factory is the headhunting company, the translation company, and they hire the people. So they hire the people. And one thing the factory would do is the bookkeeping. So we actually would manage the bank accounts and manage the payment to guard against any corruption. And we would be anyone from the government or a company that invests in the fund have software login to access exactly how the money is being spent and exactly what's the value of the money. If we exited and we sold on the IPO on the stock exchange, or mergers and acquisitions, or if it goes bankrupt, everyone can log in. So complete transparency and amazing digital reporting. So there is no corruption. But it wouldn't be that difficult to get a fund going in Bogota and sell across all of Latin America and the Spanish-speaking world. But Mexico is a big domestic market, and so that's quite exciting.
Thank you very much for answering my question.
I have a question that someone just asked me. Some are joining us through a different medium rather than this. Being that one of the things you are proud of is to bring values and getting people the resource they need, and how do you explain the fact that with all these mega tech big companies, the gap between those who have and those who don't have is still widening? Why is it that all these companies that are raised by people that didn't go to school, that's coming from the traditional wealthy family are not, how is that the money is not getting all spread all around between those who are at the bottom of the scale in countries and those at the top, because they are afraid that, yes, when you go to Indonesia, for instance, and do this, yes, you create value, a lot of value, but the value just stay in the top. So they're asking me to ask you the question: how do you explain those things, and is there a way to remedy in making sure that, because like Lexington was saying, the goal for the most people here is to achieve the sustainable development goal. The sustainable development is about actually leveling so that we don't have people going to bed without food, people have access to clean water and all those things. So just the point they were trying to make is that just getting wealth in a community doesn't make that a reality, doesn't make that a condition. So please comment on that.
Well, so what I'm hearing, just for clarity, Guy, is how do these solutions, how can they address the inequality and income gap? Yes, it may make these countries a lot of money, but how can it? Yeah. How can we close that gap at the same time? Okay.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I know Andrew has the answer for that.
Well, I would say that the income wealth inequality gap that we have today is worse than it was 5 years ago, 1 year ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and it's about to become far, far worse. So the path we're on is a gap. It's about to increase more. So if we don't act on this now, it's going to get even more severe. Okay, and with the way our solution works, it does create job opportunities and an on-the-job training, as well as the actual training company we have. We can manufacture our own retraining of people, and then they get a job that's a good paying job. And it's that population of people that'll move on to do other things that will address the income wealth gap that we have. So that is how we would address that and creating new opportunities. And there's some of this is offense and some of this is defense. So it's offensive. It's going on the offense on creating these companies in a specific country, but it's also defense against the country essentially getting acquired. Like an entire business can get acquired. And you have Americans and Chinese that are trying to do that buying right now. So I think it's scary, the thought that a lot of a country's assets could get acquired by a foreign investor and buyer. But the part we're doing to adjust the gap is creating these jobs and giving a pre-job training and an on-the-job training that'll create a generation that can create value for themselves. Lexington, would you have any other answer to address this good question?
Yes, well, yeah, and it is a great question, and it's a tremendous challenge, and I think there's a lot of details that go into it. This is also going to be a region by region issue, and tackling it is extremely important. And we can't sum it up in all the answers here, but in general, and Andrew highlighted some of the great points, but with this shift to automation, I think this and the opportunities to transition from these low-skilled labor jobs that pay very poorly and have access to a free education, like Andrew's mentioned with this Lambda School opportunity, that can train anyone to become an engineer, to be able to move into the tech field, that automatically multiplies their income potential drastically, thereby closing a gap to a degree, right? That's a level up that's closing a gap. But what Andrew's mentioning, the problem today is right now, because our system here in America is so great with our entrepreneurs and business folks, as mentioned previously, we're buying up all the winners from these countries and increasing that inequality income gap because of that model. So if these governments and countries actually had a model in place where they're using venture capital smartly, like we're doing it here in the US, and they're actually keeping the money and income in their country by using models that we've been doing here. They're going to start over time distributing the wealth around the world instead of us consolidating it here and increasing those gaps between the few, and in a region that's quite small comparatively to the rest of the world.
This model is good for mutual benefit, because imagine you are Uber USA and then you end up getting a joint venture in Caracas. So you're in Venezuela, you get one in Colombia, you get one in Mexico, you get one in Cameroon. And those companies are so successful that they IPO on the local Mexican stock exchange. The owners of Uber and their investors can get liquid and sell some of their shares in the publicly traded market in Mexico and enjoy a double dip exit. So if it's financially attractive to the US company or the Swedish company to do these joint ventures in these other countries, then they will do it. It's also attractive to them because they have the license for the use of any technology that's created by the Mexican engineers for use outside of Mexico. And that's alchemy. That's literally turning, lead into gold, that they can hire engineers in another country and have access to that local market opportunity and own the intellectual property for use outside of that country, while you still made the mayor of Mexico City very happy, because you created huge revenue and job opportunities and a sustainable population and future. That it's a win-win-win, this model.
Okay, thank you very much. Irely is waiting for you in the studio. I'll be asking people to send them some questions because there's going to be an interview. I hope you received the links already. You're going to be on StreamYard.
I'm not sure. I'm not familiar with that, and I'm not sure if Andrew can make that or not with his obligations. But I certainly can.
Hopefully.
Is it in? Should it be in my WhatsApp?
Yeah.
It is. I sent it.
Yeah.
It's a link. Oh, it's going to be from you, Fernanda?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
so, Andrew, if you have a minute, you can go there, even just one question and go back. But if not, we understand, because again, I'm definitely going to follow up with Lexington, and very soon we're going to put something in place to really seize the opportunity you're offering to educate people in America, in Latin America, in Caribbean, where I go quite often, in Africa. So definitely, thank you very much for enlightening us and show the possibility of working with John Ventures. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Guy.
C'était un plaisir. À très bientôt.
À très bientôt. Merci beaucoup.
We'll follow up with you on that. Thank you, Guy. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Alex. Bye.
Okay, Fernanda, I see the link here. I'll see you on the link, okay?
Okay. So we turn over to Rodrigo. Rodrigo and your team, go ahead and make sure that the next time we have an agenda schedule, everything is ready for that. Okay.
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 You can go announce.
Okay, guys. How I say? Well, I don't know if you know already, but I'm the president here in Peru of the largest national association of economic students. It's called APECO Peru, and we are developing an international essay contest for all students, international students of university, of last years of college, and also from economists that want to participate in this international essay contest. Is related about how is going to be the economy after COVID-19, and also we're going to focus these essays using the SDG goals of the Agenda 2030. Okay, you can see it's in Spanish. Yes, it's like it's a contest just to develop an essay about the economy and also know how to develop an essay in Spanish, right? So we have like great awards, great. It's gonna be like a great experience for all. You're gonna have like opportunity to post some of your review, research, all your academic stuff in our website, and also some new things that we're developing here. How you can see, this association, Peruvian Association of Economic Students, is working also with UNESCO Center for Peace. We made a partnership several days ago, and now we're looking forward to continue with this international essays competition. Okay, guys. So if you have any questions, you can just text me. And yeah, sorry, I know it's just for now. It's just in Spanish. In the next months, we're gonna start developing a new one in English. But yes, this right now is an invitation for all the Spanish people who wanna be part of this. Okay, so if you have any doubt, please just text me if you want in the soon meeting. But right now we're gonna get out because this is the last part. Or also you can text me by WhatsApp. If you have my WhatsApp, I will text it right now here in the Zoom chat. Or also you can go to our website, apeeco.org.pe, apeco.org.p, for those one who know how to understand Spanish. Okay, so thank you, Nicole, for sharing the screen. I really appreciate it. And now, guys, we just sorry.
No, I was just gonna say thank you.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. Okay, I don't know if someone have any question about this, about everything, about something. Do you want to know about the schedule for tomorrow? About your committee? Please raise your hand right now. Or if you want to say something, doesn't matter. Okay, perfect. So now, guys, this is all the schedule for tomorrow. We're already done with this. So we're gonna meet later at 5 p.m. Washington D.C. time. We have a new conference. I know this some of you are gonna be like at midnight, so it's not mandatory for all of you, right? But yeah, but if you can join, remember please today 5 p.m. Washington D.C. time in this link in this Zoom meeting, we're gonna have a new conference. Okay, guys. So have a good afternoon, good night. Depends where is your country, and also see you later. Bye, guys.